before we start our show, we want to pay tribute to the late Sean Milligan, aka Black Ranger 30, who passed away uh, 2 years ago. Sean was a good young man. He had a bright future ahead of him, and I'm so sorry for his family, and my condolences go out to them. So we're going to have a moment of silence in honor of Sean. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, now let's begin with our show. Welcome everybody to not only to episode 3 of the Power Ranger podcast, but also the return of this show. I'm your host, Dr. Tim, as always, and to my right is the man from the Disney brain, JWR.
Hello, good to be back.
Good to be back here. Good, good to be back here. It's been a while, so here are the topics we'll be talking about today on our show. Today we'll talk about Dino Fury coming back in March and more. And there's more topics about Austin Balo. Okay, I'm doing well, Austin. I'm doing well. And now let's get this underway. So JWR? What is your thoughts about Dino Fury coming back in March?
Like, as in, like the fact that it's coming, that it's allegedly coming back in March, or my thoughts on the show overall, so far overall.
Um, uh, yeah, both actually.
Okay, well, to the first point, was it so? From what I gather, a Canadian a website that has cable listings for Canadian TV shows shows that Dino Fury is allegedly coming back on March 5th. Now, I'm I don't I'm I'm still kind of taking that with a bit of a grain with a bit of a well, not a bit, a massive grain of salt, since I believe okay, no, I believe that the reports of it airing in Canada on March 5th are official, since cable websites tend to be pretty accurate with that kind of stuff. Though I don't really think that tells us anything about when Dino Fury season is going to come back come back in the US. In part because also sure, March 5th happens to be on a Saturday, but be on a Saturday, and Power Rangers usually airs on Saturdays. But but where it gets a little bit tricky is the fact that starting is that Dino Fury that this is going to start airing on is going to be Power Rangers is moving to Netflix. So that's where and I don't think we've seen anything that shows that Netflix is going to drop Dino Fury season 2 or the first couple of episodes of season 2 on that day. Now, it could happen, but all this tells me is that we know when it's going to drop in Canada. When it's going to drop when it's going to drop on Netflix in the US is still kind of up in the air at the moment. But but moving all that aside, let's say that it is true and that it is that is premiering on Netflix on March 5th. In which case, sure, why not? Why not? I'm curious to see where they go with season 2, uh how where they how they pick up from that cliffhanger, and if they can how they stick the landing, and also maybe find out what Sentai they'll choose to adapt after Ryu Soldier. Yeah, so I guess that answers that question. As for the second part of the question, I've mostly liked Dino Fury so far. I haven't loved it. Like, I wouldn't say that it's like a top tier all time favorite season of mine, but given that this is the first season fully under Hasbro and not like a transitional season like Beast Morphers. I like what we're seeing so far. I don't think they've fully shaken off some of the rust from the all the rust from the Neo Sabana era, but and and I do and certain decisions they made with the story and characters have been a bit questionable. Certain characters have felt a bit underutilized. Javi, but so far it's off to a decent start.
Good, good. Well,
I don't know. What are your thoughts on it?
my thoughts on it is like I'm liking it so far. As you said, it's fun. And I love the swords. It looks so cool.
Oh, I forgot to mention the stunt. Okay, the stunt work. I don't. I'm pretty sure this is done by but this isn't done by Koichi Sakamoto, but people who used to work with him. Uh, Stuff like you mentioned like the props and the stunt work, and yeah, those are definitely points in the show's favor. I'm curious to see now. I'm curious to see where they I said it before, but where do you what are you most curious about in terms of season two? Like where they like is there what are you looking forward to, or what's your the one thing about regarding season two that you're most eager to see, good or bad?
I would most rather see Rio Soul Max Dino Fury Red's Battleizer. That's the most thing I see. And I kind of would like to see the Ultra Sword too. Can't wait for that. Al- Also, I've been told that, well, I've heard, or that you said like Ninja Steel was light. That's what you said?
Yes.
I mean, can you explain why it's like light?
Uh, like can't in that like light in that it's can't be silly low stakes, like. And yeah, here's the thing, Power Rangers, it's not that camp is something that's new to Power Rangers, but Di- Ninja Steel feels camp and basic and safe in a way that even that it feels almost it feels at times it almost feels like like a Nick Jr. show with how simplistic, with how simple the plot is, how inconsistent the characters are portrayed, how they and I guess just how my biggest problem with Ninja Steel in general is how is just back that it just feels like it feels that it's just largely just going through the motions. Well, among other problems I have with that season and the Neo Sabana era.
Yeah.
Actually, since we're on the topic of ninjas, today is the 19th anniversary of Ninja Storm premiering.
Oh, yes. Happy anniversary, Ninja Storm. The one that started off the Disney era.
Funnily enough, which was also my the first season of Power Rangers I watched. It still holds a
Oh,
very one that I guess I don't. It's not the one that personally holds a place in my heart because it was the first season I ever watched, and I think with the and I think when you consider what preceded it, it definitely stands out from from previous seasons of Power Rangers. Like this is like you said, this is the inaugural season of the Disney era, and one that oddly enough kind of feels like a bit of a refresher, if you know what I mean, in that like the like the post Zordon C the starting with the post Zordon era, the show had like a generally serious tone. I mean, it's Power Rangers, so there's still some inherent silliness, but the story they were trying to tell was in like from I'd say starting with In Space, but really with Lost Galaxy up to Wild Force, it is like there's some pretty heavy moments in those seasons, like the stuff with the Kendrick's Kendrick's sacrifice and the power of pink. I mean Ryan's backstory in Lost Galaxy. Um, Time Force is pretty heavy. All the stuff involving Master Org and Cole's parents. Like it would like that era might honestly be the darkest the power that Power Rangers has ever gotten. So coming off of that, we have Ninja Storm, which is generally light, breezy, chill. It's the most chill season of Power Rangers. It's light, relatively lighthearted, easy going. There's the whole I guess came out of the peak of the came out of the peak at surfer skater bro culture. So there's a bit of some of that, especially with Dustin. It also I like how tongue in cheek it is. Like it's I like that it's self aware. It pokes fun at some of the tropes in the show. Like there's it frequently breaks the fourth wall. Lothar is basically like a can't be like a villain from out of the 1960s Batman show. It was after the show after what 4 or so years of the show like being getting really dark and dramatic. It's nice that the Disney era that for the first season of this new era, they decidedly went with a different approach. Like it's not going to be super heavy dramatic at first, but it's going to be like a fun it's going to be like it's fun, it's different. It decidedly feels like a new era of Power Rangers.
Yes, and I totally agree on that. But what about like other shows and that? What about Donna? They say Donna Thunder is like the peak of
Oh no,
Disney era.
Dino, Yeah, I will freely admit right now that I am very biased when it comes to the Disney era. That in my opinion, for the most part, is the best that Power Rangers has ever been. The most consistently entertaining. Well, okay, not to say that the Zordon and the Zordon eras weren't good, because they were, but I feel like with I really do feel like you cut some of the franchise's best moments, some of the best Rangers, some of the best a lot of the best moments of Power Rangers can be found in the Disney era, whether it be basically all of Dino Thunder, including the Legacy of Power episode in Dino Thunder, the fact that they brought back Tommy Oliver and in a way that felt organic to the story, and actually continued and felt like a logical conclusion for where the character left off. SPD, which has then there's stuff SPD. Mystic Force is kind of a mixed bag. Operation Overdrive is definitely the weakest of that era, but even with its faults and some of the stuff that didn't work, I really I think time has has been kinder to it, especially in light especially now that we've seen that that like remember when Operation Overdrive was considered like the worst season or Turbo, how everybody thought this is the low point of Power Rangers. It can't possibly get worse than this. And now how those seasons are, and now not so bad now, considering that we've seen how low this franchise actually can get. But
Yeah.
like yeah, the so yeah, so yeah, I do def I am generally a big fan of the Disney era, and although I've enjoyed Dino Charge, I liked Beast Morphers, and I am enjoying Dino Fury. I see I'm running into this. I don't know if you call it a problem, but I feel like the Disney era in a way kind of spoiled me when it came to Power Rangers, because now I'm worried that I might never fully love a season of Power Rangers like I did with Ninja Storm or Dino Thunder or SPD or RPM and so forth. That might just be my bias talking, and it's all just my opinion, but that's just kind of how I that has kind of colored how I felt about the Neo Saban era and how I felt about, and that is part of why I am hopeful about what the show can potentially do under the Hasbro era.
Yeah, the Hasbro era is doing very good right now. I hope they can keep up that role. Mm,
Yeah.
I hope. We'll see. But anyway, you also said that you missed the theme song wasn't a remix or rehash of Go Go Power Rangers.
Yeah, I do. I do. I kind of miss when each I kind of look. I get it. I get it. It's a staple of the franchise. The original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is basically wait. The first thing that most people think of when they think of Power Rangers is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, including the theme song and the catchphrase. But I don't know. I kind of miss when the theme songs felt varied, like how like the theme song for Lightspeed Rescue sounded different from the theme song to Wild Force, and none of and they didn't feel the need to put Go Go Power Rangers in it. I missed that. Although I guess I missed that. Same with the morphing calls. I I still long for the day when we can get away from every season constantly using it's morphing time. And again, I get it. Staple of the franchise, iconic line, so iconic that even Go Busters actually uses it's morphin time. I get it. I get its significance, but maybe this is just me being burnt out by the Neo Saban era, by the Neo Saban era. But I really am kind of hoping for the day when we get back to original theme songs and not constantly paying, I guess, not constantly being shackled to the legacy of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. You want to know the funny thing?
What is it?
You know, the funny thing is that Disney Disney never wanted Power Rangers. It was like the unwanted stepchild that they ended up having to adopt when they bought when they bought Fox Kids and rebranded it as ABC Family. And I like starting with Mystic Force, they tried everything they could to kill the show and be done with it. And yet, ironically, the fact that Disney didn't care for it wasn't really one of their priorities, allowed the writers the creative freedom to experiment with the show, to move past the for move past some of the formula and the tropes of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Actually, actually kind of continued the progression that the franchise had gone under, starting with, well, I'd say starting with the end of Turbo, but really kind of beginning with In Space. And like it was the show was actually allowed to evolve and update it. We had Power Rangers who weren't teenagers in high school. That was like that was not that was nice. That like we I kind of miss when I I miss I miss when Power Rangers would push would push forward and kind of wasn't afraid to be experimental, take risks. Even Operation Overdrive, which is widely regarded as the worst season of that era. Like most of the problems with that season don't come from the problem with Operation Overdrive wasn't that they had bad ideas. No, most of the ideas and concepts that they had for Operation Overdrive were great, but not all of them were executed well. And even with all of that, you they always there was always you could always tell that they were putting effort into it. When something didn't work, when they fell on their face, something didn't work, they got back up. They took big swings and they missed, but I admire the fact that they took those swings at all.
I admire it too. But at least Operation Overdrive tried.
Exactly. It tried to Mega compared to Megaforce or Ninja Steel.
I mean, the concept. I mean, yeah, Megaforce started at the 20th anniversary of Power Rangers, and it was starting to get good. I was liking it, but then the only thing they brought back was the teleportation that the original used, and and I was happy. But then, and since why can't the Super Megaforce suits be their main suits for Megaforce, and then
Yeah, because I don't know. That whole season was just a mess. It started off as a really dull rehash of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and then it it just evolved into excuse me, and then it just like and then it got to the point where the only way the season could stand on its own two legs was relying on cameos and reminding you of other seasons to distract you from the fact that their own season wasn't very good. Like the can you like outside of Noah, can you really think of any character in this show who actually stands out in a positive way? And not in an unconventional comedy way. Oh man, I still Troy. I don't even know where to begin with Troy Burrows. They had Grant. You know, I'll wait to give my thoughts on that. I wanted to hear your thoughts on that first.
I mean, Megaforce though was just a mess, and the fact that you're not gonna use the Ranger keys for that,
I know.
it ticks us off even further. Why can't y'all take advantage of the 20th anniversary? Why?
I
It
know.
doesn't make any sense. Why?
I think the problem it was twofold. It was the fact that Jonathan Zacher was out of practice when it came to Power Rangers because he had not been involved with the show Wild Force, and you could definitely tell he was rusty with his work on Samurai definitely showed that he was rusty. It was that and some of the baffling decisions he made with the writing. But I don't think it's entirely his fault because you have to remember that I think Nickelodeon was also the Nickelodeon and the restrictions that the network put on him were the other part of the problem.
But and then you said the hub would have been good for a while after holding Power Rangers back then, but then it would have likely died off when it became Discovery Family.
Yeah, because I mean, granted, I say that, and I still stand by that. But I mean, look at that. They had show they when it was the hub, and they had shows like My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, and Dan Versus, and Transformers Prime, and they even had reruns of older shows like Animaniacs, Tiny Toons Adventures, Batman the Animated Series. Like Power Rangers back then at the peak of the popularity, it would have been right at home. Unfortunately, even at the peak of the network, it still would even at the peak of the network, it still wouldn't have been the most ideal because the hub, now Discovery Family, was a cable network that not every family household has. You know, the sad thing about all this is that for as much as Nickelodeon hampered the show for as much as I feel Nickelodeon has hampered the show for the time that they owned Power Rangers, it was regrettably the only logical place that the franchise could go at that point because Disney didn't want any part of it, so like so Disney Channel, Disney XD, ABC, those were all off the table. All like the big blocks of Saturday, all the big Saturday morning blocks. Those were those were a thing of the past. They were basically a thing of the past. So it's not like you could have just put it on you couldn't have put it on something like ABC Family or Kids WB because those were long gone by the time Power Rangers was brought out by. They were. Hold on for 1 second. 1 second. Just give me 1 second.
We'll wait on you.
Yes. No. Yeah, sure. Sorry about that.
It's all right. Go ahead.
But yeah, but yeah, like I was saying, Nickelodeon, for all its flaws and for all the issues that came with how they treated the show, at the time, it was the only place that Power Rangers could go. Now, I'm curious to see how things work out with Netflix because one of I guess the thing that is allowed I guess let's be honest, as much as we love Power Rangers, as much as we love talking about it and all that, it basically exists to sell toys. And one of the ways in which they sell toys is, marketing, advertising. I'm curious to see how that's going to work out since Netflix, isn't it doesn't exactly have doesn't exactly do commercials or advertisements in the same way that like a television network does. I'm curious. I am curious to see how things shape up for Power Rangers Power Rangers with Netflix. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts, your fears? How do you think things are going to shape out? Are you confident about Power Rangers' future on Netflix? Are you worried? How do you feel about that?
When I heard last year that the rest of the Power Ranger seasons were taken up was going to be off Netflix, I was livid because
that was such, and it's
that was,
that I never got that. And it's even more baffling when you consider that some of the seasons are still there, and now Dino Fury is gonna it's going to Netflix. It's come like Power Rangers is basically making its home at Netflix, which makes the fact that they basically got rid of it all, that they basically got rid of most of the seasons all the more baffling. It's like did you know that the new generation of My Little Pony is going to be on Netflix. The movie debuted there, and the TV show is going to be there too. But like half the seasons of Friendship is Magic gone. I don't get it. See, although I guess this just kind of highlights the big, I guess the major downside when it comes to streaming. It's the available it's there 1 second or for a couple of days, but then eventually when they either can't afford or don't want to pay for the licensing fees, it's gone.
Yeah, but anyway, I was able to to about half of the seasons of Power Rangers on Netflix. Why? Yeah, I can
Licensing
see like
fees.
I could take Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Super Ninja Steel, or Ninja Steel, because it counts for it. Which which brings me to my next point. The super seasons. Why? Why? Why
Hell
make
if
them
I,
super seasons? If you're
hell
just
if
gonna
I
make a
know. It was
season
an,
two, just call it season two.
or
That makes
hell, just, or hell, just have it, just, or hell, don't even make a season two. Why even split it into two seasons? Why not just have it be the full? Okay, wait, actually, no. I answered my own question with that one. It's an, it's a television, it's a Nickelodeon mandate thing. They usually don't. The most of their TV shows usually don't. They usually, okay. Power Rangers is normally different from the average TV show in that most seasons of television have what usually have what six, 8 episodes have lie. Most seasons of of television shows have what have what 13 somewhere between like 13 26 episodes per season. Power Rangers is different in that they usually have like what 30 for you usually has 30-40 episodes per season. I guess Netflix wanted to serialize it because instead of it having one season be 40 episodes, just split them into split into two seasons and call it Super, to make it seem new and all that. Although though I would though honestly I'd argue that created more problems than it solved. Well, and actually no, actually didn't solve any problems. Didn't solve any problems. It just created more for the show and the showrunners.
Yeah, yeah, that's just making me mad. I mean, but if well, what would happen if we get a Kamen Rider Power Ranger crossover? Would that be exciting?
You'd have I mean, it wouldn't be on the one hand, it wouldn't be the first time it happened with Zio. I believe they did like
No,
a cross.
around season three.
Was it well earlier season? So it's not without precedent, but if they use the Common Rider suits, it like no, like when you say that, do you mean characters characters from Common Riders is like the characters from Common Riders meeting with characters from Power Rangers, or them reusing the suits and having them be different characters? Because they've done the latter before, but if they're like doing a full crossover with Cro- Common Rider Common Rider crossing over with Power Rangers, I don't know. That I just feel like that's going to create some logistical problems because you'd have to explain who are the Common Riders, who why are they meeting with the Power Rangers, why you'd have to set up who the Common Riders are. You'd have to unless they already unless they're already doing another Common Rider show prior to that, so that anybody watching would have some context. I don't see the point. Oh, not to mention not to mention they actually tried to do an American version of Common Rider and it did not go very well.
Mm. I mean,
Dragon
Dragon
Knight.
Knight was all right. I mean, I like the suits. I love the Zords. I kind of like their vibes. But anyway, but imagine if Dragon Knight will be on a streaming service because the actor Stephen Munsford, who plays Dragon Knight, said he's trying to get the rights to it.
I mean, who would you'd have well first you'd have to find a network or a streaming service that would be willing to greenlight it. Well, okay, he would have to acquire the rights from the person who currently holds it. Then he'd actually have to find a streaming service that would greenlight another Americanized version of Common Rider after the last one. Not even talking about after the last one didn't really go anywhere or pick up any steam. And then then I guess there's a matter of choosing what stream of well, okay, TV is not TV. Like television is like cable television's out of the question, out of the question. But like maybe Netflix is the most logical option. But I mean, given their hit and miss track record with adapting Japanese IPs, do you really want to take that risk? That's my point. That's my fear, at least.
Yeah,
It's certainly possible. Okay, that having said all of that, it wouldn't have to be an Americanized version of Common Writer for it to be successful, because they've been having a lot of success with their because Netflix has been experiencing a lot of success with their foreign shows like Squid Game, All of Us Are Dying, Hellbound, and whatnot. So it's not like it's not like it's impossible for them to for them to do Common Writer, but the odds of it happening, or at least like the odds of I don't know. I don't know if, and I really don't know if any Japanese Sentai show is ever going to be able to stick in the way that Power Rangers did. Like they like Saban actually tried to replicate the success of Power Rangers with like Mystic Knights of Tunanog and Beetleborgs, and while some of them actually had a fan following, none of them were really able to gain traction or I guess become part of the pop culture zeitgeist in the way that Power Rangers did. They were never none of their attempts were they were never able to recapture that lightning in the bottle. Right, almost something that would actually happen again during the Neo Saban era, but I think I've talked at length about that.
yeah. Well, but you said now. Let's go back to Ninja Storm. It is its 19th anniversary. It is its 19th anniversary, and
Mm-hmm.
You said Lothar isn't your favorite villain, but you did like the Aku vibe he had going on.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you mean like Aku vibe? Like from Samurai Jack?
Yes, Samurai Jack. As in, so I like that they actually have. He's not as good. I'm not saying he is as good of a villain as Aku from Samurai Jack, but I did like that while he was clearly the villain, that he that they were that he was occasionally being a goof. He was campy. He was silly. He was occasionally being a goofball and cracking jokes. I like that about him. Like what I
Yeah,
said when I called him like a 60s. He's basically a 60s Batman villain.
60s Batman villain. If you like call him a 60s Batman villain, what would he be? Like a Joker?
Well, I made the comparison. I made the comparison to bring up the fact to bring up the fact that he is like. So it was when I made that comparison, I meant that in the sense that he's self aware. He's self aware. He's constantly making jokes about he's they're making fun of the formula, making fun of the fact that, oh boy, time to make another monster grow and all that. I like that they kept the tongue in cheek tone with the villains as well.
So growing up, I always loved the original. I grew up with the reruns of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers on Fox Kids, but at that time, Time Force was on. That was the main season at that time.
I do remember watching Time Force as a kid, here and there, but Ninja Storm was the first season I watched regularly.
And
What were you
and I
saying?
love Time Force because
Oh no, Time Force is great.
And Time Force is great on its own. I love it. I love. Heck, they literally killed a Power Ranger, man. That's
Yeah, that would. Yeah.
holy moly, man. And and Rancid is just a badass villain in his own way.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He's so good at that role right now. I think if I think now originally the battle fire was supposed to go to Trent because of his kindness, but Wes is
Hmm.
being about destiny. So, what's your thoughts on that one?
That certainly would have been an interesting development. Although I would have been an interesting development. It has been. It has been a. It has. It has. It's been. It's been a while since I've watched Time Force. I need to watch. I need to watch it again. That's a man.
Mm,
That season.
what would
That season and that era of Power Rangers is and that era of Power Rangers especially holds up really well. Like I remember I randomly saw In Space on Netflix. I thought I'd only watch a couple of episodes because hey, sure, why not? There's nothing to do. I got I got really invested in that season. Like that man. I know I said it before, but it bears repeating. I think I don't think I don't think Power Rangers will I man, that like from in space to Wild Force. Okay, I still largely prefer the Disney era since it's my favorite, but man, the post Zordon era, I mean, the post I mean that might honest that might the Disney era is my favorite time period of Power Rangers, but the post Zordon era might honestly be the best that the show has ever been.
I agree totally.
And I am hoping, and I am hoping that I am confident that there is the potential that under Hasbro there is the potential for a season on par for a season not as good as not better but maybe close to like the high to like in space or Lost Galaxy or even SPD. I really do think that the potential is there for an all time great season of Power Rangers under Hasbro, and I'm confident that we can get that we are more likely to get that now that we don't have to worry now that the show doesn't have to worry about the restrictions of Nickelodeon and now that the transition's over and that Power Rangers is firmly in the hands of Hasbro. Actually, and on that matter, Hasbro actually has a lot of very talented writers under their pool. Like some of their, I'm not joking when I say that there are episodes written by people like I won't lie. I think there are like writers from My Little Pony who would do wonders with Power Rangers, like Nicole Dubuque, who did Transformers Rescue Bots and is actually doing. Okay, so I know this is a Power Rangers
Sorry.
podcast, but Did you hear the news that did you actually hear the neuse that Nickelodeon is making a new Power Rangers Jesus Christ a new Transformers show with Nicole Dubuque working on it?
No, I'm not.
Oh yeah,
To be honest, I don't know why Nickelodeon chose to take Transformers.
Paramount
Oh, Paramount.
because it's owned by Paramount and so because it's owned by Paramount.
Yeah, and Viacom CBS. Oh,
Yeah,
leave the Transformers franchise alone.
I mean okay. Well, okay. Well, okay. The Michael Bay films, yeah, we don't need. Okay, I will say this: the first Transformers film from like 2007, not a great film, but decent,
It was decent.
decent.
I liked
I
it.
can't say the same about the sequels, but that first one wasn't terrible. Bumblebee was the first time they actually got was the first time that they actually got it right, and I am hoping that they stick with that, even though Travis Knight and the writer and screenwriter Christina Hodson aren't coming back for Transformers: Rise of the Beast. I am confident that they'll get it right. That they will continue to not make that they will continue to not okay. It doesn't need to be a masterpiece. Just be better than the other just be better than the Transformer sequels. That's
Yeah.
I mean, they're already on the right track. I All they need to do just do what you can to stay there.
I mean, now the sequels, I will kind of disagree. I kind of like Revenge of the Fallen. Yeah, true. The villain did got to be 1 to 2 minutes. Like,
And they're I want to be I want part of me wants to be a bit lenient on Revenge of the Fallen because it was affected by the writer's strike,
yeah,
but I mean, there's no excuse for for how male gazy it is. Why there are so many close up shots of Megan Fox. Why Megan Fox's character is sexualized throughout the movie. There is no excuse at all for
yeah,
skids and mud flat. The less said about those two, the better. It was a mess. It was like even Michael Bay himself admitted that the movie was a mess. Well, I mean, he kind of landed. Not that the sequels were well, not that this though not that the sequels were that much better, but yeah, it was a mess. Dark of the Moon was a bit better, but was still way too overlong. That's the one of the biggest issues with all the sequels. They are way too goddamn long. They're like there are uh, and they like they progressively got longer and longer and just and more and they progressively got longer and longer and felt and dragged on long and with each progressing film you could feel that length like the fourth film is almost 3 hours long and it didn't even need and it didn't need and it didn't need to and when it didn't need to be like there is in it okay it's weird the fourth movie feels is both too long and also not long enough like it it they drag on and like they drag on and they they both they're both they're both way too god they're it's hard to say because like they're both way too long and have so much fat that needs to be trimmed and yet they all of them especially the fourth film feel really rushed and underdeveloped like there is an entire scene in the fourth movie Age of Extinction devoted to devoted to justifying why devoted to justifying why a 20 something year old man why it's okay for a 27-year-old man to date a 17-year-old girl and every I just oh by the way I should also mention that to say nothing of the fact that Michael Bay to say nothing of the fact that Michael to say nothing of the fact that the girl that the character in the movie is the character Mark Wahlberg's daughter his the character is 17 but it gets which is already kind of sketchy enough but it really gets sketchy when you consider that the actress playing her was 16 at the time they filmed the movie so yeah So yeah, not so great. Yeah, not exactly big. So yeah, Mike, yeah, I mean, he basically sexualized a 16-year-old girl. Okay, I, ugh, God, there's so much wrong with there is so much wrong with that movie. It in fact, why are we even still talking about those movies? Let's talk about Bumblebee. The actually good Transformers movie. The one that did the one where the Transformers weren't secondary characters in their own movie. The one where the human characters weren't completely irritating. The one where the female character kept her clothes on for the entire time and wasn't sexualized. Please. Oh, the one where the Transformers actually looked like Transformers and not those ugly garish designs and those ugly samey garish designs from the other five movies. The fact that we could actually make out that the action sequences were actually good. We actually got to see robots fighting clearly and concisely. Well, I mean, okay, it also helps that we have John Cena's in it. I will say, like, he he's come along. I gotta say, Side note, John Cena's come a long way as an actor. I mean, he's no thespian, but he's certainly gotten a lot better. And I think, like, starting with, and he has his comedic timing in Bumblebee is really good. Like the part where he's like, "They're called Decepticons." Is that ringing off any bells? Like, he is on it. He is legitimately one of the highlights of that movie.
Yeah, I agree on that.
On a side note, have you seen the Suicide Squad or Peacemaker?
I have seen the Suicide Squad, but not Peacemaker.
Oh, it's so good. It is. It's really good. And, like, honestly, he's the show is great, and he's one of the main. And John Cena is one of the main reasons why. He has come such a long way as an actor. It's a great show. The first 7 episodes are available on HBO Max now, and the finale airs this Thursday, and I'm excited. One last
But
topic. What were you gonna say?
well, yeah. Sorry, fans. We were going off topic for a bit.
I mean, okay,
But
one last topic to bring it home. So usually around this time, like during the second season of ever since Samurai, like during sometime during or before the second season of the current show, we usually find out what Sentai is being adapted next for Power Rangers. Um, I I feel like we should close this out by, I guess, asking what Super Sentai do you think is going to be adapted to Power Rangers next? And what season you would like to be adapted for, and next, and also maybe briefly touch upon what they might go with, considering that next year is going to be the 30th anniversary of the show. So you go first.
so, what do I think should be adapted after that? Well, I've been hearing this theme song about Power Rangers universe. Wow, what's it called?
Q Ranger?
I'm sorry.
You think they might, as in, like, you think they might, like, universes in space? You think they might, like, adapt Q Ranger next?
Yeah, because I like the concept. I love the theme. It's fan made, and I love. And I kind of it's a combination of an in space SPD, Mystic Force, and Wild Force, and I actually kind of like that. That's actually kind of cool. But I
What's your
hope they don't make go back to the teenagers and teenager in high school format, please.
I hope. I hope not. I'm actually kind of glad that we've been moving past that, starting with Beast Morphers. Like, say what you will about Beast Morphers. One thing they did well was not having the characters be in high school. And even though and even though and I I I appreciate that we only had one character who was in high school during Dino Fury, and even then, it was not the focus. But yeah, so I guess back to what you were saying about Q Ranger being the next season, being the next season, that there I'm gonna list a couple of reasons why I think that would make sense, and why that makes sense, and why Hasbro would adapt that next, and I guess a few reasons for why they might not. So pro 30th anniversary, like you said, it has the potential to be a cross between in space, what'd you say, in space, time
In
force,
space,
in
Ninja
space,
Storm,
Ninja
not Ninja Storm,
Storm,
not Ninja Storm, Mystic Force,
Mystic Force,
SPD, and Wild Force.
SPD, and Wild Force. 30 wait, um 30th anniversary. It's big. 30th anniversary. There's what, 10 or 13 Rangers in that season. So it's big and grandiose and has potential to tie back to previous seasons to set, which makes sense because 30th anniversary. It's like it could be this big celebratory thing where they could go all out. Lots of more Rangers means more toys. Yeah, there's that. With net Now that Netflix is producing the show, they might be a bit they'll likely be a lot less stingy and restricted than Nickelodeon. So there's that. So those are all the reasons. They those are all the pros. Although now for the other half, the cons, I guess the reasons why they might not.
Yes.
There are it is a the I listed the fact that it's big and ambitious as a pro, but it's also a potential con because 10 Rangers means more toys, but that also means more characters that you have to juggle, different plot points. It might be so that's one. B, it's well, okay, well, the big one is that it is the scope and scale of it. It would be a more ambitious season, but that might also present a challenge because lots of Rangers, lots of characters that they have to develop and develop lots of lots of storylines they have to cover, and that might be a bit too much. That might be a bit too much for them now. Like I don't know, they might be more than they might be biting off more than they can chew with that one. Not to say nothing of the fact that there's a good chance that Netflix might be a bit stingy and might not be able to that Netflix could be stingy and might not, I guess, be able to provide them the money and resources that they need to, I guess, do that season justice. But although I'm not saying I don't think it's impossible. That certainly could be the next season adapted. But I wouldn't bet on my life. Oh, that's the one they're gonna do next. Although to be fair, I don't think we know for certain what season they might do next because my guess, and granted, a lot. I am not as well versed in Super Sentai as you, but if I were to say, I would say maybe either Zyoger or what's the other one with the with or what's Kira Major, either Kira Major or Zyoger, because I don't think we're ever going to see Power Rangers adapt what's it Lupinger versus Pat Ranger, especially with all especially like more I don't think kids are going to be entitled. I don't Might be a bit of a hard sell to get kids on board the whole morally ambiguous thing with Rangers fighting each other. To say nothing of the fact that might that the whole that with police public relations being as they are, might not be the yeah. I don't, and that's why I don't think we will ever see them adapt like I think that kind of rules that one out. I'm not so sure about what's the Sentai currently airing? What's it called again?
Oh, I haven't watched Sentai yet. Never watched the Sentai. No.
Don Brothers, the one with the one where it's just like the one ranger and the robots. I don't think not I'm not confident they'll really touch that one. They'll mostly want to go with the season that's where it's just rangers and not for the people in robot costumes. I mean, granted that's probably just me speaking, but whatever. I also think Tokuger might be not impossible, but definitely unlikely, given that I don't know. I just feel like trades might be a bit too juvenile and childish, even by Power Ranger standards. But that's just me.
But anyway, I was gonna go back to the Battlefire before we close the show. Originally, what would have happened if Trip had the Battleizer still? What?
Hard to say. Although I, like I said, it's been a while since I have seen Time Force. I mean, although to be fair, I mean, hard to say. Would have been interesting. Um, I trust that they would have. I trust that they would have found a way to pull it off, and that they would have found a way to pull it off well. But I guess it's just should have, could have, would have. I guess we'll never truly know.
I forgot. Speaking of Battleizers, what? It would be awesome. Would it be awesome if we get a female Power Ranger holding a Battleizer?
That's one. I hope so. I mean, we've already gotten our first female Green Ranger, so I hope so. Anything's possible.
Anything's possible. I won't count Samurai because Shogun mode is power.
They had the potential. They had the potential to do something really special with Lauren, and they dropped the ball hard on that one.
Yeah. I mean, but Shogun mode was interesting because I actually like it. It's the same. But anyway, so yeah, I believe that is it for this episode. I want to thank you, JWR, for being here.
Happy to be back.
Happy to be back as well. I'm happy to be back as well. And once again, before we close it out, I want to say I want to take one last tribute to Sean Milligan.
R.I.P. dude.
Rest in peace, my good friend. And I hope we'll join you soon, my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you guys like this video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the bell icon to get notified every time I go live or upload a new video. Also, go check out. All right. Do you have a YouTube channel?
Wait. Yes.
Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute.
1 second.
All right. I'll wait.
Yes. Wait. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I do have a
yeah.
YouTube channel, but I don't really post. But I post videos on it.
All right. So, also,
yeah.
follow me like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, all that. And yeah, and we'll see you guys next time.
Next week?
Next week? Yeah, sure. What time do you want to start next week?
This time's generally fine for now.
All right.
Although the thing is, so I currently work at the theater, and we've been slow for a while, though I expect that to change once Batman comes out. But for now it works. So we'll try to do this at least once a week.
Once a week.
Once a week when we can, though not in this. though not in a set day. Maybe Mondays.
Maybe Mondays. All right, that's cool.
All right.
All right,
See
yep.
you.
And